Israel Sports Radio Studios in Jerusalem, Israel, our nation's capital. It's Louis Live! There's Rose, me, and Radio Mike.
How you doing, everybody?
Good to have you, Radio Mike. Good to have you in studio. Radio
My
Mike
pleasure.
from Kew Garden Hills here in Israel for vacation, stopped in studio to join us. We appreciate his time. How have you been enjoying your trip so far?
Every time I come to Israel, I am more and more amazed at what a great country it is.
Yeah, truly amazing. Some point down the road, could we ever get you to move out here?
It's a possibility. I do have an apartment not that far away from the studios, and I would love to come here. It's just a question of when my wife tells me, okay, we're moving.
Right, absolutely. No doubt about it. You got to listen to the boss, but we'd love to have you here in the country in Israel. It could be Radio Mike of Israel instead of Kew Garden Hills. And what have you been doing so far on your trip out here?
Well, I've been going to a lot of Talmud classes. I went to the completion of the Talmud. I went to two different siyumim, one in Binyanei Homa and one in the Great Synagogue. And hopefully Sunday night I'm going to go to my third one. And after that I'm going to be heading home, flying back to New York. But I went up north to a chauffeur factory. I went to a beautiful place yesterday, boating also up north, and I've had a really great time just being in Israel.
Great stuff there, and we're happy that you enjoyed your trip. We're going to get things started. We have a jam-packed show, and our first guest is the voice of Rutgers Sports. He does other work as well. His name is Danny Breslauer, so we're going to give Danny a call here on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com, and want to remind everyone to check out our store as well. We have great items such as T-shirts, hats, and much more. Radio Mike, of course, wearing his own T-shirt he made and his own kippah. The Radio Mike kippah. And he gave me a kippah as well that said Israel Sports Radio with Ari on it. Hi, am I speaking with Danny?
How's it going?
Hi, Danny. This is Ari Louis. You're live on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. How are you doing out there?
Not bad. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I want to introduce you to my special guest co-host here in studio, Radio Mike, who'll get things started. Go ahead, Radio Mike.
How are you, Danny?
How's it going, Mike?
Okay, really great. Just wondering, I know you cover all the sports there in Rutgers, but, there's one great story there about Eric LeGrand that, being paralyzed and everything, and he actually got drafted by the Tampa Bay Buccaneers by Greg Schiano, who used to be the coach for Rutgers and now the head coach for Tampa Bay Buccaneers. How great a story is that?
It's really one of the best stories, certainly to ever come through Rutgers athletics and maybe to ever come through college football. Unfortunately, it stems from a small bit of tragedy in the sense that, Eric playing the game that he loved, and Eric and I actually went to high school just minutes from each other, played in many of the same youth teams and youth leagues. And he was just one of the most amazing personalities you'd ever meet, the same kind of great kid that you're seeing off the field now. As he was getting all these awards and getting drafted, he's the same kind of kid, both on and off the field. Also, just you have to give a lot of major props to Greg Schiano, who was the head coach of Rutgers for the last 11 years before taking the Tampa Bay Bucs job. And what he's been able to do, not only during Eric's rehabilitation process, but also post his leaving Rutgers, has been really inspiring. And no matter what you thought of Greg as a head coach on the field, what he's done for Eric is beyond and above the call of duty.
Well, how tough will it be for the new head coach, Kyle Flood, to fill his shoes? As you said, he was a great coach on the field and off the field as well. How tough will it now be for Kyle Flood?
And it's interesting. Normally during a coaching transition, you would say right away there's going to be a degree of strain in trying to redevelop relationships that players had with former coaches. Kyle Flood, however, has been on this staff for 7 years. He's been with Greg Schiano since 2005. He's been an offensive line coach. He's been a co-offensive coordinator. Kyle Flood knows Rutgers football. He knows what it's about. He knows the inner workings. He was a major part of the inner workings. Now it's just a matter of putting his footprint on the program. Defensively, there could be a bit of an adjustment period because Schiano oftentimes was his own defensive coordinator. I think that if they can keep the pressure like they normally did, they have the personnel to be very good defensively, and not much will change offensively. Rutgers fans have already seen what they will get offensively because Kyle Flood has been a major part of that for the last 7 years.
And I also read that Eric LeGrand has broadcasting aspirations. Any chance that he might be taking over your job?
You know what? Eric's already done quite a bit on the Rutgers Football Radio Network, which I work for, and for Our Vision, which I do the play-by-play for. That actually was his first on-air appearance, was with Chris Carlin, the play-by-play voice of Rutgers football, on Our Vision, our network here, doing the Rutgers football spring game a couple of years ago, shortly after he was injured, which was remarkable to say the least. You know, to do that 6 months after you're injured says just so much about his resolve. But Eric's already doing regular pregame and postgame appearances on the Rutgers Football Radio Network, so no doubt in my mind that someday he will be stepping into all the different booths that I have here at Rutgers.
Oh, that's good. And I see that you're a Yankee fan, as I am. But the one place we differ, and there's not a show that when I speak to Ari, that we don't discuss A-Rod. And I see that in addition to Derek Jeter being one of your favorite players, A-Rod is one of your favorite players. How do you justify that?
It's so interesting because so many people who are in the Derek Jeter camp feel they have to not be in the A-Rod camp. And it stems from years past when Alex was a shortstop for the Mariners and then eventually for Texas. And everyone thought you were either Camp Jeter, Camp Rodriguez, or Camp Garcia-Parra. And in my mind, they were all three great players in their own right. I thought Nomar was a pretty bad example for kids how to be an on-the-field and off-the-field guy, because I'll never forget what he did in 2004 in that big game that the Yankees had in July with them. The Jeter makes that catch going in the stands, but Nomar refuses to play. As for A-Rod, I think he's got the best arm in baseball for an infielder. I think that he's still a very good hitter, and it's tough when you come off a torn labrum to get back to exactly the way you were. And yeah, the guy took steroids. He admitted it. He's past it. It's over. And he's still producing, not at the levels that he did, but at levels that would be eventually worthy of Hall of Fame status someday. So I have no problem liking both Derek Jeter and Alex Rodriguez. I think they're both two of the top 10 shortstops that ever lived.
Okay.
All right, let's go to Olympic gold, in particular the basketball team. And I've been racking my brain trying to figure out why a team with 12 NBA guys only won by 7 points against a team with only a couple of NBA guys, most notably the Gasol brothers. Was it simply that the Spain team plays better together, if you will? It's kind of the sum is greater than the parts. Or did the U.S. team not try so hard, not put their best effort? What was the formula of why we saw a 7-point game when we're used to seeing dream teams blow opponents out by 40 points?
Well, you hit it with the first point. I think that's these Spain guys have been together forever. And they've played in youth leagues together. They've worked their way up through the system, whereas many of the U.S. players played against each other throughout their entire careers. They never were on the same teams because they were always the superstars of their respective colleges or high schools in LeBron's case. And they never had the chance to really develop that pick-and-roll camaraderie that you saw the Gasol brothers had with Navarro and Rudy Fernandez, and how they were able to work the offense. That and Marc Gasol, before he got those 4 fouls, was looking like the reincarnation of Shaquille O'Neal. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, it was.
I haven't seen him play that well in a long time.
Yeah, but they really don't have any stars. I mean, if you go through the NBA roster, I mean, it's like the best players in the world playing for one team, and they only win by 7 points. I mean, I kind of think that what they did was they just didn't really show up for the game. They thought it'd be like they beat Nigeria, I think, by 60 points or something like that. I think they were just going to walk. They thought they were going to just walk all over them, and they did win by 7 points, but I think it was tied going into about into the fourth quarter.
Spain led at points in the third quarter. I don't think they thought they were going to walk over them. It's hard to look at a team that has Paul Gasol, Marc Gasol, Rudy Fernandez, and Serge Ibaka and go, we're going to walk over them. Because that's a team that would make the playoffs as probably a top 4 seed, in the NBA if you put those guys in a lineup with, Navarro or some other Spanish point guard. And they would be a top 4 seed in either conference, and maybe in the East they could be a 2 or 3 seed. So there's no way I know that they're an NBA All-Star team. They didn't look across the other way and go, oh, we're blowing these guys out by 20 like we did Argentina twice. It was pretty evident it was going to be a good game from the outset. I did not expect it to be that close. I think a major reason why it was that close is that the U.S. did not shoot all that well early. And anytime you can't get it going from outside, and it's interesting because the international three-point line is shorter than the NBA, a lot of these shots that they're taking are long twos, and You wonder how much that'll adversely affect them come October, as Kevin Durant got so accustomed to hitting every 22-foot jump shot he was getting given by that Spanish defense.
Yeah, Kevin Durant was sensational. If they were given MVP for the ball game, I believe it would have gone to him. He had 30 points, and without him, if he didn't come to play, they would have lost the game, in my opinion. I'm curious also, and I love sports because it's an art form, and you try to figure out why certain pieces work together or they don't work together. And with this USA team, I don't believe they had the 12 best players in the NBA, partly because Derrick Rose was injured. You couldn't control that. Dwight Howard was injured. You couldn't control that. But going in the future, 2016, already looking ahead, is the U.S. team going to take a bit of a downturn? Because you won't have Kobe Bryant next time around, most likely. Probably won't have Tyson Chandler. And we don't know what the injury statuses will be of the gentlemen who are injured. What about and Coach K retired as well? What about, at least so we said, what is the future of USA basketball in the Olympic Games, in your opinion?
I mean, there are so many great coaches that, Coach K's great, but, a lot of people can coach the talent that he had, and it's a very similar situation to what he has at Duke. When it comes to talent, yeah, there's going to be a small drop-off. Kobe retiring from international play. Tyson Chandler, as you said, will probably age out as well. But you'll have a developed Anthony Davis. You'll have a few other players that are still in college right now, excuse me, that you'll wait and see are probably going to be one-and-doners and in the NBA very quickly. That could be on the national team by then. Additionally, Dwayne Wade, Dwight Howard, Derrick Rose, you hope by then they're all healthy. Who knows if Dwayne Wade will have aged out too. There are all these things you have to take into consideration. Listen, the U.S., for now, is always going to be the best in basketball.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt about that. And even the 2004 disaster was... We still don't understand what exactly happened, I think, at this point. But I would still say if they played those teams 100 times, they'd win at least 90 of them. So I think it was a bit of a fluke.
When Stephon Marbury's scoring 30 points for you, there's a problem.
That's right. That's the thing with Marbury. When he joins your team generally gets worse, and I'm a Suns fan, so I know about that. And when he leaves your team, your team gets better, as I know about that. After he left, we got Nash, and
he also was on the Knicks, so I know about that too.
Right.
Yeah.
You want to stay away from.
I wouldn't buy his shoes either. I broke my ankle playing in them. They're no fun.
I think the secret to winning a game, just send Stephon Marbury to your opponent, and then you'll win. And then that'll be the secret. Now, I mentioned this last night on the broadcast, and want to bring this up with you as well, that there's generally one or two winners of an Olympics. A guy that goes to a place of somewhat known to a major superstar on Wheaties boxes, this type of thing. I think in this case, it's Bolt with the 3 golds. I want to get your take on his performance and where he goes from here as far as major endorsements.
What was the athlete you mentioned there? Sorry, I didn't catch the name.
Usain Bolt.
Oh, okay, of course. I mean, Usain Bolt, at this point, we've known that Bolt was the best sprinter in the world since the last time we saw him run. I think that the World Championships and the trials down in Jamaica were a little bit of an aberration. Obviously, Johan Blake is a great runner, but Usain Bolt probably was not vulnerable enough to be beaten in both the 100 and 200. We clearly saw that in everything that he did in both of those races as well as the relays. Usain Bolt is a different kind of human being. You don't normally see sprinters that tall, that big. And he's able to just have the strides to, even when that relay team, and I'm sure you saw the 4x100, even when the relay team of the USA was able to get it even on the baton, which is about as well as they could have done heading into the final leg, Bolt wins that thing by 3 meters. This guy is cocky. He's got an edge to him. A lot of people are going to like that. Some will get rubbed the wrong way, but you know what? It's not often you hear an athlete say, hey, I'm the greatest there ever was, the greatest there ever will be. And we're always hoping that athletes get a little more colorful, and that's what Usain Bolt's giving us.
Yeah, and apparently that he did a little dance at the end that somewhat slowed him down, but still won by such a large margin it didn't really matter. And it's true, we're looking for colorful characters, colorful personalities with our sports stars. I mean, for those of you out there who don't like that type of attitude or say it's unsportsmanlike, look at Pete Sampras. Sampras is one of the greatest tennis players ever,
right,
but didn't get a lot of commercials because he was quiet and nice. So people have to be honest of where they're at, where we are in the media, and a guy like Bolt is just going to be a superstar in the commercial scene. Want to now switch gears to Major League Baseball, and this is, of course, the first year where we're having the extra wild card team. And first, I want to get your general thoughts about that system. Some of the purists don't like it because it's a bit watered down, have another team in the playoffs. But we have some great races ahead. I was looking at my St. Louis Cardinals that have probably no chance of winning the Central. They're one game back of one of the wild card spots, but they have to leapfrog two teams. So there will be a lot of compelling races. I want to get your thoughts of the overall system of the second wild card team.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of it, but that being said, I can see its merits. I can see how really late August and September now has just become outstanding because of all the races that we have there for the second wild card. That being said, I think when I realized that it was a little bit of a sham was when I looked at the standings. I guess it was probably 2 weeks ago now, before the Yankees went on a bit of a downswing where they were leading the AL East by 10 games, and Boston was in last. I think they were 15 back, but they were 4 back of the second wild card spot. And I said, that's a joke. They're last in the division, and they're 4 back at a second wild card spot. How does that even work? I know the AL East is good, but that needs to be rectified. I don't know whether it's you can't have 3 teams from the same division when you do the second wild card. I don't know how it's going to go, but something has to be done in order to avoid a situation like that where a team can be last place in the division on August 1st for the sake of argument and then win a second wild card spot.
Well,
last year, the 1969 Mets coming back against the Cubs when there were no wild cards. That's a different story.
Well, I believe you can have 3 teams in the same division.
That's what I'm saying.
So you can have Tampa, and I think it would be really great if Baltimore made it too. But if I'm not mistaken, the Mets in what was that? 19? They were like last place, like September.
69.
No, it wasn't 69.
73.
No, it was 1973. They were in last place, and they leapfrogged over all the teams, and I think they were like 1 or 2 games over 500, won the division, and ended up in the playoffs. But, I mean,
You know why that doesn't happen anymore, though? That doesn't happen anymore because teams sell off on July 31st.
Right.
They sell a lot of their talent. They go get prospects. Teams back then would have kept their guys, and maybe the skipper, whoever that may be, could rally the troops for a late September run. That doesn't happen anymore because by the time September 1st comes around, your roster expands to 40. You call up a lot of minor leaguers that you want to look at for the future.
Great point. That's very well said, and that's a big reason why baseball is very different right now. Now, you were speaking of skippers. One skipper that's a bit of hot water, at least according to most of his players, Bobby Valentine of the Red Sox. But one gentleman, former MVP, former ASU Sun Devil, by the way, Dustin Pedroia, says at least he has his back. Radio Mike made a great point in the green room that maybe that's just for show. What are your thoughts? Are Dustin Pedroia's sentiments legitimate and sincere that he really would like to see Bobby Valentine come back in a Red Sox uniform next season?
I doubt it's sincere because of how close he is with Euclid. However, that being said, I know that second basemen are often a major scrappy aspect of the infield, and they're the guys that, even if the shortstops aren't all that star power laden, they're the ones that can speak for the entire team because they seem to control a lot of what the infield's about. And in Pedroia's case, he seems to be the one that everybody looks up to on that team. I don't think he's genuine about it, but in the end, I'm sure that he's not going to call for someone's firing. He's not Carmelo Anthony. He's not Dwight Howard. This is a different sport. You got 9 guys out there, 162 games. It's a very different dynamic. Whether Bobby V should be back, for the record. You don't give a guy 1 year in Major League Baseball and say you're gone. I think that's a ridiculous, fickle George Steinbrenner 1980s way of going about it. That is no longer part of the game. And listen, Bobby V did not do a good job this year, but he deserves at least one more to see what he can do.
Well, I think he got off to a really, really tough start there. I think they were 0-4 and 1-10, and then they made a little run for it. They're just about 500 now. But the season, like Josh Beckett, he got rocked the other night again. I think he's won 5 games this season. And Bobby Valentine, I thought at the beginning of the season, that would be a really good choice for Boston. But I think, I don't know if he's handled his players that well. And, I think it might be a tough decision if they don't make the playoffs and they don't look like they will. And you could blame it on the players, but the players really don't like him. He's a type A personality. A very,
what
very.
are you supposed to do when Beckett and Lester don't get you double digits in wins combined?
That's true.
That's
I know that's really bad. I mean, those are your 2 aces, and they're supposed to win. It's a tough thing, but somehow the whole there's a malaise in the team. That they're just not playing hard enough for him. I don't think Adrian Gonzalez likes him. I mean, he's having a decent season, but nothing like he had last year. And I know they've had a lot of injuries, and Carl Crawford isn't exactly the best, what it used to be with Tampa. But I don't think management really cares all that much for him either.
Well, it's new management. Ben Charrington is a brand new GM. He's very young. He's from the Theo Epstein mold, which is why I think they went that way. And my mother, who grew up in Skokie, Illinois, will tell you that if Theo Epstein can turn things around, there will be a lot of people that can die happy on the north side of Chicago. But
Theo made one miracle happen, so maybe he can make another. Who knows? I mean, that's the guy you want.
Well, it's funny. He took one community that had so many years of pain, and this one has even more years of pain. So
He'll
suffering.
He'll go right into the Hall of Fame. He'll be right up there in the Hall of Fame.
Doubt. Oh, he put the Cubs in the playoffs. I think he might be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah, I mean, or at this point, they might make a statue or something because, in college, I wrote a paper about the Curse of the Bambino in detail, and just never thought the Red Sox would win. And the fact they won 2 titles because of Theo, certainly, anything's possible, and something could happen with the Chicago Cubs as well. Now, we have a few more minutes with you, and, of course, we have to talk about, in my opinion, the biggest move of the summer, NBA-wise. Dwight Howard going to the Los Angeles Lakers. Lakers give up Andrew Bynum. He goes to the Sixers. Want to get your assessment of the trade. Some people will say it's not as a slam dunk trade, pardon the pun, for the Lakers because Bynum is probably a better offensive player, but I think it is. I think the Lakers will be in the finals next season, but want to get your take on it.
Oh, if you had to go in order of which team did the best in this trade, the Lakers did the best, Philly did the next best, and I think Orlando did a miserable job here.
Agreed.
They get protected first-round picks. I mean, how are these all lottery protected is beyond me. At some point, you have to put your foot down and go, listen, we need a top 5 insured pick here, and go out and get it. They got a bunch of first-round picks. They got some things to reload talent-wise. I don't think they did very well. Philly, they get Bynum. He's having the same knee surgery that A-Rod and Kobe did out in Germany next month. We'll see how he comes back from that. Listen, Andrew Bynum, again, went to high school 10 minutes from my house. The kid was the second-best player on his high school team. It was amazing when he was picked number 10 overall in the draft. Everyone thought it was a big joke. He goes in, Phil Jackson and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar turn him into one of the best post players in the land. So he'll be a big impact player for Philly. As for the Lakers, listen, Dwight Howard, Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, Paul Gasol. I tell you that right now, and if I'm the Heat, I'm scared.
Yeah, if you look at that resume, that starting lineup has 2 Defensive Player of the Year award winners in Artest and Dwight Howard, 2 MVP winners in Kobe and Steve Nash, and then Paul Gasol's not that bad either.
Yeah, so, but you do, excuse me, but you do have a little age going on there with Kobe Bryant and with Nash, and these guys. Dwight Howard is coming off an injury, so I'm not.
It's for the here and now, though. It's for the here and now, not for the future. I think that's what this trade's about. It's for the next 2 years. Do they have a chance to dethrone the Heat? That's what it's about.
Yeah, I believe their window's 2 or 3 years. Would I be a little concerned as a Laker fan? It smells a little bit like 2003, 2004 when they added Karl Malone and Gary Payton, and they said, this is going to be the Beatles, and this is great. We're going to win 70, 80 games. And they forgot how old those players were and made it to the finals but lost to the younger, more athletic Pistons. Would you be a little
different when you're bringing a guy who's not too far removed from high school in Dwight Howard? He never went to college. He came straight out of Southwest Atlanta Christian Academy and did a pretty solid job in the league for the 7 years that he was, functional for Orlando. I won't let the last year be a functional one. But that being said, there's a lot of age on that Lakers team. Don't get me wrong. Paul is getting to the top of his peak. Kobe is above his peak, but is still Kobe. Steve Nash, listen, the guy is maybe one of the best three-point shooters in the league that nobody knows about, and he's going to get a lot of open shots this year because he's going to create shots for other people, and they're going to play off of him. And watch for him to have a big offensive year. I would not be surprised.
And not just that, Steve Nash was second in assists last year in the league to Rajon Rondo. I think people forget about that. So he's still not at the top of his game, not his prime, but not that far from it, not that far removed from it. So I like this move a lot. For those out there that say the Thunder are still the better team, what is your argument outside this? I guess basically the starting lineup, but I don't think so. I think they're better than the Thunder. I know you agree, but if you just elaborate on that.
Yeah, they're probably better than the Thunder. And just quickly before I go into that point, I go into the city every summer to watch Steve Nash play in his charity soccer classic. The guy is one of the best athletes in the world. It's amazing to watch him play soccer and to understand what his touch is like, what his feet are like, how he's able to move around a basketball court because of those athletic abilities. As for the Thunder, that is a great starting lineup. I mean, Ibaka is an elite post player right now. Durant, Westbrook, Harden may be one of the best 3 swing player combinations because I'll never, ever let myself talk myself into thinking that Russell Westbrook is a point guard. But all 3 of those guys together make an interesting combo, and you had a 5th piece in there, Thabo Sefolosha, who I thought played great defense throughout all of last year. You put them all together, and you have a good team, but you don't have an elite team, and that's what the Lakers have now with the additions they've made.
Absolutely. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't think that the NBA was too happy with the Lakers having such an early playoff exit. I don't think it's so good for ratings. I think,
right.
It would be the highest rated NBA Finals of all time if the Lakers and Heat play next year. I would call that right now, even more than Jordan, because you're going to have several stars in the NBA Finals. It's going to be a lot of fun. Danny, we have to run. We certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio, and we'd love to do it again with you in the future.
Of course. Thanks for having me. You do a great job out there.
Thank you. Really appreciate it. Be well out there, Danny.
Thanks.
Take care.
All right, then it was Danny Breslauer, the voice of Rutgers sports, but as you can see, he certainly knows more than just Rutgers and college sports. Break it down, NBA and Major League Baseball. That was a lot of fun with Danny. We appreciate his time. We're going to take a break. We have a very special treat on the other side of this commercial. From ESPN, Mike Tuck. He's an afternoon radio host in Orlando, Florida, so you can guess some of the things we might ask about with Mike. That's on the other side. This is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
This is Tamar Cass, and you're listening to Israel Sports Radio.
Shalom from the United States. I'm Gina Pitts.
Parrish Graham.
Mike Pitts.
Roosevelt Hall.
Mike Roy.
We're your friends from the Pro Sports Lives radio show on WAFS Biz 1190 AM. You're listening to Louis Live.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Sports Drain Seat Seat, Compression Fit, UV Protection, Moisture Wicking, Anti-Odor, and Physique Enhancing. Certified by the Circle K. Sports Drains is a revolutionary seat garment that features high-performance properties and a compression fit, offering the wearer ultimate comfort and style for sports and everyday wear. Custom logos and team jerseys are available. For orders, please visit TamirGoodman.com. That's TamirGoodman.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Support Barak Netanya, Israeli professional basketball team, as they give back to the children of Netanya through Netanya Hoops for Kids. Netanya Hoops for Kids serves all of the children of Netanya, especially the ones that need us most. Through basketball clinics held by professional players, at-risk children learn life skills like teamwork, communication, discipline, and community responsibility from real-life heroes. Netanya Hoops for Kids partners with the municipality, schools, and local nonprofits to bring thousands of children to basketball games each season. Join us as a donor, partner, or fan. One city, one team, one family. www.netanyahoopsforkids.org.
The biggest names in sports are all on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJ Venom, DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event to the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Building love of Israel, one sports fan at a time. IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio with our very special in-studio guest co-host, Radio Mike. Radio Mike, you having a good time so far?
Oh, it's just great.
Okay, excellent. And we're not going to call Mike Tuck, who, of course, is a member of ESPN in Florida. So there's a lot to talk with Mike about. He's an afternoon radio host down in 1080. So we're going to talk to Mike. And there is a lot to talk about, obviously, in Florida, a lot of Florida sports. Of course, I mentioned Dwight Howard and Chad Johnson, for those of you who haven't seen the video as well. Hopefully this won't be his machine. Hello, Mike.
Hello.
Hi, Mike. Hi, Mike. This is Ari Louis. You're live on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. How you doing out there?
I'm doing great. How are you today?
We're doing wonderful. It's a pleasure to have on now from ESPN Radio in 1080 WHOO, Mike Tuck, and out of the Orlando, Florida area. So before we go to Dwight Howard, we got to talk about Chad Johnson and the very weird situation where he gets fired on television or cut because of headbutting his wife, and his life is in shambles because his marriage ends, he loses his job, he might not have another chance in the NFL. I guess I want to say it felt a little weird, a guy being fired on TV. I know we're in that sensational TV environment where we had Donald Trump saying you're fired on The Apprentice, but something about that seemed a little weird to me. It was kind of like watching a train wreck. Are we at that point, though, of media where we're going to see this more often, of people being let go or other tough decisions on television live the way it was with Chad Johnson?
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things that kind of tugs at your heartstrings a little bit. Even if you don't like the guy, to see somebody embarrassed, see somebody taken down a peg, it's something that we've seen before on Hard Knocks, that we just haven't seen it with a player the level of what Chad Johnson is. In the past, they've had where they followed around rookies, on guys that have been undrafted, and they've shown them go through training camp. At the end, they get that, hey, you got to bring your playbook to the coach's office message, and you know what's coming. But we've never really seen it with a player the caliber, the name of a Chad Johnson. But without question, I mean, if you're talking about what reality TV is ideally, that's exactly what it is. It's something where you feel like, oh man, you're quaking in your shoes. You're just nervous throughout the entire thing, and it was, like you said, it was almost like watching a train wreck, and you could see the real struggle it was for Joe Philbin, the Dolphins coach, to have to inform Chad that, maybe the cameras added a little bit extra of nerves and pressure, but that's got to be an uncomfortable situation for any boss to have to fire an employee.
Yeah, but I think there is a tremendous fascination going on in America. Like you have a Tiger Woods. Now, he's a great celebrity. He's a great golfer, and his whole disastrous marriage and everything like that. I think that the media couldn't get enough of that. They just loved to watch an icon be turned into just mush. And it's just a fascination. Anyone, you get the greatest person, to bring him down. Well, that guy has everything, and now he has nothing. Oh, well, that makes me feel good.
It's people
right.
that.
No, I agree with you. It is sad that so much of what the media and more people in general nowadays too, because the media has been extended because of technology. There are more people that have the ability to be sources, to be informants, because of camera phones, because of video recording devices that they can have on their own. Any person can have, and they want to be the one to say, gotcha. And I say all the time on the radio here is we live in a gotcha society. We can't wait, like you just said, to drag somebody down to say, aha, I knew they weren't as good as I thought they were. Aha, they deserve that because, I don't like the way they're living their life. And, the guy that I feel most sorry for is somebody like, Tim Tebow, who has to live up to these unreal measurements that have been placed upon him, that if he ever slips up, that it's going to be the biggest, most enormous news story ever. And you're right, that is something that is a little bit disgusting, that is part of the reality in our society today here in America.
It's kind of unfortunate. I get this feeling it's like a Greek tragedy, and we're interested because, as Radio Mike alluded to, it kind of makes us feel better about ourselves, to see someone else go down, but it doesn't change our situation, doesn't make things better to see someone suffering. And like you mentioned, you had a great point. Even if you don't like Chad Johnson, I think you had to feel a little weird about him being embarrassed the way that he was. Now, I thought he handled that fiery very professionally. He didn't jump up and scream. He understood he made a mistake, and he understood what had to happen. What I want to know is, where does he go from here? Because he's had some issues in the past. He's kind of a Terrell Owens light, some issues at Cincinnati. Does he still have a job and a future in the NFL?
I don't think he does. I really don't. I mean, he has been a good human being. You know, he might rub people the wrong way, but I think all this time he has just used the media to his advantage throughout the course of his career. He's recognized that he can say and do things and draw attention to himself. And, you know, he's probably that kid in school that we all knew that liked being the class clown, that liked the attention, that liked making people laugh. And that's who he was. And, you know, he said it, and he's right. He's never been in trouble with the law. This is the first time in his life, you know, that he found himself facing an issue. And I think the reality for Chad isn't so much that this issue has arose. It's that the fear that he can be disruptive in a locker room, one. And two, and maybe more importantly, is that his struggles in New England are starting to appear like they were real. Like he is a guy that is well past his prime, that he has hit the end of the road. Even in Miami, the descriptions coming out now from camp and from players that have been willing to talk to the media is, you know, a misunderstanding and not being able to grasp the offense. And the same criticisms that were levied against him in New England, to the point where if you're an NFL team, why would you want to bring somebody in who has declining skills, has not shown you anything on the field to make you think that he's worth, you know, the investment and the risk, and a guy that is clearly struggling to pick up a system? Even we've heard that in Cincinnati, that was a problem at times. And as good as he was, and he was a multi-time Pro Bowler, a guy that you can always count on for big yards, big touchdown seasons, number one receiver type, but even then struggled to understand exactly where to go and where to be at all times, and failed to pick things up quickly. And I just think we've seen the last of him. It's very, very disappointing, because he's had a much better career than I think he'll be remembered for. I think he'll be remembered more for his antics and his celebrations and that kind of thing than what he did on the football field, where he was a really good player for a decade.
But I think on the same token, you know, you just can't, I mean, wife abuse, you know, that's really not going to be tolerated. And from what I understand, he headbutted his wife. Now, unless you're trying out for the World WWE, you know, you can't do those things. And, you know,
right.
you just can't do that. It can't be tolerated. And also that they have a new coach out there in Miami, Philbin. You know, sometimes, you know, you just want to show who's boss, and, you know, and I remember, like, the Giants coach, they would always, before the season, they would always cut one star player, you know, who had waning skills and whatever, and they thought they wouldn't really need him, and they would cut him just to show who's boss and make all the other players play that much harder. And I think that might somewhat be the case over here, you know, with a new coach coming on. You know, he says, well, listen, I'm the boss, and we have a star player over here, and Chad Johnson, he headbutted his wife, he's gone. And that's then the story.
No, you're right. I mean, you want to set an example. You want to establish something. Joe Philbin, you know, even in that, you know, broadcast live over HBO last night, talked about, you know, I'm not trying to make an example of you. This isn't one incident. And, you know, as much as I think ideally we believe you can't just headbutt your wife allegedly, you can't commit that kind of a crime allegedly, is that if it was a better player, the reality is if it was Reggie Bush, or if it was the rookie first-round pick Ryan Tannehill, or if it was, you know, Cameron Wake or Carlos Dansby on the Dolphins, or any star player across the board in all sports, it's about leverage. And if you're that good, they'll find a way to work it out with you. We've seen guys that have got second and third and fourth chances if they're good enough, and Chad just isn't good enough to justify keeping him around right now.
Yeah, you're 100% right. I mean, let's just say Ravens, Ray Lewis, they figured out a way to keep him. You know, they didn't cut him after what he allegedly did, and then they won a Super Bowl. And it's sad, but it's true. You're 100% right that if a guy's good enough, if he can ball, if he can play, they'll figure out a way to look the other way and move on. But I will say this one more thing with Chad. It wasn't Chulago's wedding was July 4th. He did a very nice gesture. I don't remember it in detail, but I believe he invited someone to the wedding that was ill. Can you give us more details on that?
Yeah, he actually did do something along those lines where he reached out. And Chad's always been, look, again, he's a good human being. He's never been in trouble with the law. He's never had, issues where you've even heard people talk about he's tough to get along with or a tough person to be around. He's just eccentric. He is who he is, and he kind of wears his attitude and his emotions on his sleeve, and that can rub some people the wrong way. I think a lot of people just like their athletes to be quiet, do their job well, and move along, and we'll look at him like that. But it's disappointing to hear about what has happened, where his wife has now filed for divorce. I don't know if they'll work it out. I don't know if they can work it out. They've only been married a month right now, so it's crazy to think about that they would end it this soon. I mean, because there haven't been any details, at least none that have been made public, that they've had struggles in the 4 weeks that they've been married. So who knows where this is going. But, I guess she even comes from, she was a basketball wife, I guess. I'm not read up on her per se, but I guess she was married to some NBA player, and she was on a reality show. So, she might have a few screws loose as well. So maybe they're meant for each other. Maybe they'll figure it out. But, yeah, now Chad, look, I met the guy about a year and a half ago. I met him when he was in Orlando at an event at Disney, and he nicest guy. I mean, he was so genuine, nice, answered every question you asked of him, wasn't afraid to, tackle tough questions, anyone that would question, his way of doing things. So, I have nothing to say about the man personally from my one experience with him, but yeah, he's a good guy, and hopefully this will work out in the long run for him on a personal level, if not a professional level.
I actually think that, there will be a team that will pick him up. If one team loses one or two wide receivers and they need someone, they'll pick him up. And case in point, you're having right now Plexico Burress, he with that gun charges for the Giants. He didn't play for 2 seasons. The Jets had him last year. And, right now he's trying out with the New England Patriots. I'm not sure how that went. But, I'm sure Plexico Barris will find a team, and eventually Chad Johnson will find a team. It all depends on injuries. If they need someone, as we said, if he can still play and catch that ball, and he'll find a team.
Yeah, no, if he can show that, he will. Plaxico, I agree with you. Plaxico will find a team. The workout was with New England on Sunday. I don't think New England is going to sign him. He would have already been signed by now if that were the case. But somebody can use him. I mean, he can't run nearly as fast as he used to, but he's big. You can't make 6'5" up, and he has ball skills, and he was able to score touchdowns for the Jets a year ago. And I agree, he'll find a job, I think, before the preseason's over.
All right, I want to switch gears right now to obviously the biggest trade of the NBA this summer, Dwight Howard. And a lot of things to talk to you about because it looked like he was going to the Nets. That didn't work out. And it sounded like that was the main team Dwight wanted to go to at the end. Obviously, it wouldn't be that hard to twist his arm to go to Los Angeles. But what were some of the things that broke down to halt him from going to the Nets, and then the doors opened up and allowed him to go to L.A., and he gets his wish and gets out of Orlando?
Well, for Dwight Howard, and he's acknowledged this, is the biggest mistake he made was last mid-season in February, March, whatever it was, before the trade deadline in the shortened season. He decided to opt into his contract because he was fearful the Orlando Magic were going to trade him to a situation where he didn't want to be in. Even though it would have been his last year there, I've been told it was Houston that was going to be able to acquire him before the trade deadline, and Houston was a team that was a borderline playoff team. When he was still with Orlando at that point and still healthy, the Magic were a 3 seed in the Eastern Conference. And I think in his own mind he thought, I don't want to go to Houston, and I want to try to win a championship this year, and I think I can do both those things in Orlando, so I'll opt in. And it was on the notion that he passed along that the Magic would still look to explore trade options for him in the following season. He shouldn't have done that. He should have just taken the trade, gone to Houston, played it out. He would have been a free agent. He would have signed with Brooklyn like he wanted to. As it was, Brooklyn, to be perfectly frank, didn't have anything that the Magic wanted or could use on their roster. The Magic weren't interested in a trade that would have gotten him Brook Lopez who's coming off 2 foot surgeries and today still can't walk yet because he's recovering, on a 4-year, $60 million contract. That would have been locking them to a guy who was injured. They did that with a much, much better player a few years back with Grant Hill, and that turned out to be one of the more disastrous moves in NBA history, having signed a guy who was injured when he came here and barely played in the 7 years that he was here. So they didn't want to go down that road. They didn't want Chris Humphries, and the Nets were backed up against them because of either a lack of resources, a lack of things they could give the Magic that they were looking for. So that was a tough sell from the get-go. I think Brooklyn did everything they could. I think they made the best offer they could, but it wasn't nearly good enough for what Orlando wanted. So that left the door open now for L.A. to swoop in, and that was the one place that that could persuade Dwight Howard that he would want to be long-term. And so I think from that point forward, you know, the negotiating part for the Magic was simply, there's not a lot of places we can send this guy where we're going to get what we want, because they don't want to take the risk that they'll trade for him and he's just going to walk and leave the next year. So that kind of limited their trade options. And so that's where it came down to L.A. just being committed enough to make the bold move to move Andrew Bynum, to bring in Dwight Howard. And they were able to find a couple of teams in Philadelphia and Denver that were able to help facilitate that trade.
Now, before we get into the details of the Howard trade and where the Lakers go to, I've got to get your perspective as far as the Orlando fan base, because in their brief history, for those who don't know, Orlando was an expansion team, I believe, in 1989, so it was like they were a longer team. But they have lost Shaquille O'Neal, Penny Hardaway, as you mentioned, Grant Hill, that disastrous contract. Tracy McGrady eventually left. They were going to get Tim Duncan, supposedly, when he was a free agent in 2000. Didn't get him. Now they lose Dwight Howard through trade. What's the Orlando fan base saying at this point? Are they feel like they're cursed, kind of like why us type of thoughts in Orlando?
Yeah, definitely. They feel like the jilted bride-to-be, if you will. Like they've been left at the altar a few times. It's definitely a kick to the stomach for Magic fans. And, you know, to have the repeat of Dwight Howard, like Shaquille O'Neal, going to Los Angeles, going to a bigger pond, if you will, where he could be a big star in Hollywood, it hurts for Magic fans. They're very disappointed. They're very upset with Dwight Howard for making this decision. But at the same time, they're disappointed with the franchise and the direction that the Magic management guided them in. Otis Smith was the general manager here. He put together a team that was capable, that was very good. They had the best run they've had in their franchise history with Otis Smith as the general manager and with Stan Van Gundy as the head coach. They won a lot of games. They were winning divisions in the Southeast Division. They got to an NBA Finals where they lost. They got to conference finals where they lost to the Celtics. And in the end, though, it was, you know, being so close, you know, so close to the carrot, you can see it, and yet they were, you know, misguided, the management was, Otis Smith was, in his decision-making, and the players that he signed, and the contracts that were bad for the team, and the decisions to trade players away, like Marcin Gortat, not getting enough value in return for him, the decision to bring Hedo Turkoglu back on a player who was clearly in decline, on a contract that clearly was not going to be helpful. And it basically, you saw the results. They went from a team that was in the finals to a team that went to the conference finals to a team that was beat in the first round to what they were this past year, which was another first-round exit. Now, Dwight Howard was obviously injured and not part of that exit, but it was a team that was going in reverse, winning less games every year and seeing less productivity. And that, I think, is a reason why the fans are both angry with management and angry that Dwight Howard wasn't willing to stick it out. But I think some fans do have perspective and understanding that if you put yourself in Dwight Howard's shoes for a second, you realize that why he might be upset with the team that he was on and the decisions they were making, and he felt like he wasn't a big enough part. But no matter how you slice it or dice it, Magic fans are either angry, agitated, upset, or completely bewildered by everything that's gone on in the last year.
Well, how much do the Orlando Magic fans, how much do they hate the Miami Heat fans?
I think everybody hates the Heat fans. I don't think that's just limited to Orlando Magic fans. It was kind of exciting, honestly, a couple of years ago, where it was, hey, now this can be a real rivalry, Miami and Orlando both being good at the same time, which has only happened a a few times in the 20 years each of them have been in the league where they were both strongly competitive. And, they had a pretty good series a couple of years ago when Miami went to the finals and lost to Dallas, where they, had a back and forth in the regular season, some great games. But now it's just, envy, it's jealousy. They were the team that was able to convince, Dwayne Wade to stay, LeBron James and Chris Bosh to come. And the Magic are just the opposite. They're the team that seems to be losing stars and now losing Dwight Howard. It's just only going to add to the matter and probably add to the hatred of their in-state rival.
Well, also frustrating from an Orlando Magic fan perspective, my understanding is that they're pretty good fans. They show up for the games, they stay for the games, they cheer. Miami Heat fans will leave in the third quarter of NBA Finals games. I mean, we know this is true. It's kind of the Hollywood on the East Coast, so there's frustration there that they're not appreciating what they have in the NBA champion Miami Heat. Now, breaking down this trade, the Lakers, in many people's eyes, will be the favorites to come out of the West, and we've talked about this in the show several times already, but want to get your perspective because they do lose Andrew Bynum, and Bynum is the better offensive player of the two. So some people would argue it's not much of an upgrade in that respect, and the Oklahoma City Thunder are still the better team, more athletic, younger. I want to get your thoughts of where the Lakers are at this point.
The Lakers are right there with Oklahoma City. It's like I can't tell you anything more than anyone else would until they actually get on the floor and play what they're going to look like. But on paper, Dwight Howard is probably a better fit for them because you're right. I agree with you that Andrew Bynum has more of a refined offensive game. I mean, Dwight isn't disabled on the offensive end. He does have the ability to score. He's the number one, offensive rebounder in the NBA, so he's able to clean up the glass and get his own putbacks and throw down. He's much more athletically agile than what Andrew Bynum is. But most importantly, defensively, he is, and I've had a number of people tell me this throughout the league. Stan Van Gundy has shared it with us on the radio and in private. There's nobody that's as good at both defending the rim and blocking shots and yet able to move his feet on the perimeter, play pick-and-roll defense as Dwight Howard. He is a unique athlete to be able to do both those things. And, unless the back injury, the surgery that he had that will probably keep him out till right about the start of the season, unless that somehow takes away from his great athleticism, that is the one area where he is going to be so valuable for LA is with Kobe Bryant getting a little bit older, with Steve Nash never being a great defender and obviously creeping up near 40 years old now. Dwight Howard is going to be needed to help out on defense, to help defend the rim, to help deter some of those drives to the basket. And there's nobody better at the league at that. He may not lead the league in blocks, but he is as big a threat to block a shot as anyone in the league, and he makes an impact just with that. And look, they don't need him offensively really to have to do a whole lot. When you have Steve Nash, Kobe Bryant, and Pau Gasol, Dwight Howard, you can make an argument, be the fourth option. And for all the double teams he saw in Orlando, I'm not sure how many he's going to see when he's in Los Angeles based on the fact they have all those weapons at other spots on the floor. So I think he's a perfect fit. I think, Oklahoma City, it's going to be a unique, both them and Miami. If you consider those the two best teams in the league, and you see why you would, with them both being in the finals, they're both so wing-oriented with Wade and LeBron, with Durant and with Westbrook, that they're going to strike at some of the Laker weaknesses. They're going to test Kobe Bryant and Metta World Peace and their ability to guard on the perimeter, Steve Nash as well. But the Lakers have something that neither one of those teams have. They have a Dwight Howard and a Pau Gasol. They got two guys that can both score from the inside and defend the basket. That's something that Miami and Oklahoma City don't have. So it's going to be fascinating to watch the matchups and see how they're able to battle it out. But I think everybody's looking forward to an LA-Miami finals, and Oklahoma City is certainly in the conversation. I would say that they're both considered favorites. San Antonio, I wouldn't forget about them either. I think all three of those teams, they could arguably be three of the top four teams in the NBA, all in the Western Conference.
Absolutely. And last couple minutes with you, we're going to switch gears to baseball. Go ahead, Radio Mike.
Yeah, what do you think of this great season that everyone thought that the Miami Marlins were going to have? Getting Reyes, Burley, they relief pitcher, and now they're with Ozzie Guillen, and now they're in. Actually, Phillies have overtaken them and are now the Marlins are in last place by 2.5 games. I mean, you have a very, very weak division. I mean, Washington Nationals have had a very, very good season. Atlanta's had a decent season. But, in that same division, you've had a disastrous Philly team, a horrible Mets team, and they're in last place. And I think they traded away a whole bunch of players now. How disappointing is that season that they've had?
Well, I'm going to be honest with you. I'm not surprised. I picked them to finish fourth before the year started, which you can look up for yourself online at our website, ESPNFlorida.com. But that's not me bragging or anything, but I think you're right. I think that it is disappointing for them. They had higher expectations. There were people that thought they would be a playoff team. They went out and spent a lot of money. They went and invested, obviously, in a beautiful new stadium, one of the nicest in all of baseball right now down there.
Excuse me. Are they drawing fans there?
Interested bringing in Jose Reyes, and he's been a little bit of a disappointment. He's played better of late, but Hanley Ramirez, obviously traded to the Dodgers now, but he wasn't playing on an MVP level. But my biggest concern with them was that I didn't think their pitching was going to be good enough. I liked Reyes, I liked Hanley, I liked Giancarlo Stanton, I liked some of their young hitting, Bonifacio. I just didn't know that their pitching would hold up as far as trying to be a playoff team, and that's kind of held to what it turned out to be. Burley's actually been pretty good for them, but it's the Anibal Sanchez's of the world that just haven't delivered for them. And Heath Bell, who was a big acquisition in the bullpen to close out games, has been an unmitigated disaster for them on that end of things. But their starting pitching, just Josh Johnson, he's finally given them a healthy season, but he hasn't pitched like the ace they thought he could be. It just hasn't been what Marlins fans have expected it to be. It is disappointing. I would agree with you. Even if I saw it coming, I would say that they're disappointed that they weren't able to produce more. But they've always been pretty good, the Marlins, at evaluating young talent and being able to make smart trades and bring guys along. And we'll see if that can be the case for them with some of these deals they've made, if they can build it back from the ground up.
What's the status with Ozzie Guillen? I know at the beginning of the season he made some disparaging remarks talking about Cuba and Castro, and he's not such a bad guy, and that I know that disturbed a lot of the fans in southern Florida and Miami. How's he doing out there?
Well, it's funny you say that, because that's about the last time we heard from Ozzie Guillen. As strange as it sounds, because he has always been such a mouthpiece, for better or for worse, for Major League Baseball. That he has been unusually quiet. I guess you don't have a whole lot to say or talk about when your team's struggling as much as they are, but I think that's water under the bridge at this point for most folks. You're right. It did ruffle a lot of feathers. It did upset quite a few people throughout the entire state of Florida, to be honest. It's such a strong Hispanic population, and the Cubans obviously are a very strong population down in Miami. That was definitely a poor choice in words. No matter how he wanted it to come out, the way it was received wasn't good. But yeah, he's been pretty quiet since then. There really hasn't been anything controversial that he said. There hasn't been anything positive or negative. So maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it's a bad thing. I think for Marlins fans, they'd like to hear him talking more as the team's winning more, though.
Are the fans coming to the games?
Yeah, it's been unbelievable this year compared to I guess since the history of the franchise, and it's so hard to underline this enough for people that don't live in the state of Florida, that it is hot, and it's not hot, it's humid hot. I mean, you sweat literally walking from the building to the car. You're drenched in sweat just in a couple of minutes outside because of the humidity down here. In Tampa Bay, as much as people complain about the location and about the awkwardness of their stadium, the Trop, it's indoors. And so being in a 72-degree air-conditioned building makes a huge, huge difference. And the Marlins had built a palace down there, and I think the fans have reacted well to it. Now, down the end of the season, I'm sure you're going to see more and more empty seats with the team struggling, but it has been 100 times better with that indoor facility for the fan base there. And if they win, I think you will see fans out there because it's a comfortable place to watch a ball game.
All right, and before we let you go, with the Marlins situation, of course, you had them in fourth place, but other people are more unexpected or surprised by this. Is Ozzie Guillen coming back at the end of this season?
Yeah, I'd be surprised if he doesn't. I think he's. I don't know that I would throw the problems that they've had on him. I think he was a good manager when he was with the White Sox. He obviously won a World Series when he was there. He just kind of wore out his welcome. I mean, him and Kenny Williams, the general manager in Chicago, had famous sparring sessions. And I think if he hadn't won that World Series, he would have been gone from there quicker. But I think Ozzie likes Miami. I think he likes being down there, and I don't think he's worn out his welcome quite yet. And I don't think there's anyone that's looking at the failures of this club and saying it's on him. So he's bought himself at least another year, if not more than that, if he wants to be there.
Okay. So we'll certainly keep an eye on that, and we respect your prediction that you were very accurate about your team and very honest about it. We have to run, but Mike, this has been a pleasure here having you on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio, and we'd love to do it again with you in the future.
Absolutely, guys. I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity, and hope to talk to you down the line.
Sounds good. Be well there, Mike.
Thanks.
All right. Bye.
All right, that was ESPN's Mike Tuck, who is an afternoon radio talk show host down in Orlando. So he gave some great thoughts and insights about the Chad Johnson situation, the Dwight Howard trade, and the status of the Miami Marlins. So we appreciate Mike's time. We're now going to take a break, and on the other side from the Washington Examiner, 7-time Emmy winner Jim Williams. This is Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
This is Tamar Cass, and you're listening to Israel Sports Radio.
Shalom from the United States. I'm Gina Pitts.
Parrish Graham.
Mike Pitts.
Roosevelt Hall.
Mike Roy.
We're your friends from the Pro Sports Lives radio show on WAFS Biz 1190 AM. You're listening to Louis Live.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Sports Drain Seat C, Compression Fit, UV Protection, Moisture Wicking, Anti-Odor, and Physique Enhancing. Certified by the Circle K. Sports Drains is a revolutionary seat garment that features high-performance properties and a compression fit, offering the wearer ultimate comfort and style for sports and everyday wear. Custom logos and team jerseys are available. For orders, please visit TamirGoodman.com. That's TamirGoodman.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Support Barak Netanya, Israeli professional basketball team, as they give back to the children of Netanya through Netanya Hoops for Kids. Netanya Hoops for Kids serves all of the children of Netanya, especially the ones that need us most. Through basketball clinics held by professional players, at-risk children learn life skills like teamwork, communication, discipline, and community responsibility from real-life heroes. Netanya Hoops for Kids partners with the municipality, schools, and local nonprofits to bring thousands of children to basketball games each season. Join us as a donor, partner, or fan. One city, one team, one family. www.netanyahoopsforkids.org.
The biggest names in sports are all on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Building love of Israel, one sports fan at a time. IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Back here on Louis Live on IsraelSportsRadio.com. Our thanks to Mike Tuck from ESPN Orlando for coming on the program. We're now going out to Washington, D.C., and talk with our main man, as we do every Wednesday, Jim Williams from the Washington Examiner. As we first brought Jim on, we talked about the business side of sports, so we'll get to that a little bit as well. I'm certainly curious with the endorsements with the Olympics. Hi, Jim, are you there?
I'm right here.
Hi, Jim. You're live on Louis Live on Israel Sports Radio. We have a very special in-studio guest host, Radio Mike. Go ahead, Radio Mike.
How are you, Jim?
Fine, Radio Mike. How are you?
Thanks.
We're doing great. A lot to talk about with you, and I want to get into the Olympics, the business side of sports, money-wise. And Usain Bolt, with 3 gold medals, clearly the star of this Olympics. He's going to get a lot of endorsement money. I'm curious how much money he'll get. I've always been told the difference between a gold medal winner and a bronze medal winner is about $30 or $40 million. How much money do you think Bolt will make with endorsements?
Well, Bolt had a pretty good run prior to this, from Beijing, and this will certainly, only enhance it. His Nike deal likely will net him somewhere in the neighborhood of probably $45-50 million. And then there's other endorsement deals depending upon, the everything from soft drinks to I'm sorry, not soft drinks, energy drinks and those types of Gatorade type brands that are going to want to align themselves with Usain Bolt. But no, he's got a good role coming out of this, as does Michael Phelps, who had already established himself and will certainly just continue to build on what he got out of London.
And also our girl Allie winning a gold as well. Talk about her endorsements, her career, where she can go for. We're certainly very happy that someone Jewish-wise did well, because the Israel team was a disaster. We actually have a committee to investigate why they did so bad. But at least Allie's kind of our honorary Israeli that won gold for us. So what are your thoughts about her career, where she can go from here?
Well, I think, again, she's very outgoing and very, a talented young woman and very well-spoken. So I think that, that certainly puts her in the, if we're talking about, where does she go from here? I think that she can go pretty much anywhere she wants to from a standpoint of endorsements. I mean, she's got a very wide open endorsement portfolio, and I think it's just that she's very young. So I think the key right now is how does she want to handle it, and how does her parents want to allow her to handle it?
Yeah, but she's young, but she's not that young for a gymnast. I mean, she's 18 years old, so the next Olympics are 22, which makes you sort of like, for a gymnast, in a way, almost old. If she was like 16 or 17.
My point is this: she's still, getting involved in high school, college. I mean, she's moving that route. So, where does she go? She can go. She can be an analyst for the networks and television. She can be a motivational speaker. I mean, it depends on what she wants as a career at this point.
Oh, she can definitely do that. I mean,
you craft your endorsements around what you feel your career is. Clearly,
Kathy Rigby.
Not being a gymnast.
Kathy Rigby is still making her name out in New York and around town.
Yeah, I mean, so is if you look out, Mary Lou Retton in 1984 was a top flight name, and she certainly did well off of her situation. So, I mean, look, at 18 years old, it depends on what she wants to do with the endorsements and how she wants to craft her life, and I think that's really, if you look at other Olympians, some of them choose to be forever known as Olympians, and others choose to kind of move back into a different role, and take on a profession, be it a lawyer, be it a doctor, be it whatever they particularly enjoy doing, and stay around the Olympics as a advisor, as a coach, as a mentor, and as a motivational speaker. So it depends. 18 years old, it really depends on what she wants to do and how she wants to handle this for the rest of her life going forward from here. But I doubt seriously that she'll compete in the games in Rio at, as you say, at the age of 22, which is old for a gymnast. And there's a lot of good young gymnasts coming forward, in the ranks. So let's see how it plays out. But she's got, at this point in time, she has a lot of very good options in her portfolio. And at 18 years old, it'd be great to have those options.
Yes, I would have loved to have those options at 18. So she's at a good place. We're very happy for her. We love that she did her routine of Hava Nagila. It was really great. I kept getting asked in the synagogue about it, so because they know I was a sports guy in the neighborhood, and I just thought it was fantastic. I want to go. We'll shift gears back to the Olympics, but before we do, the Dwight Howard trade. I'm going to ask you a question, a different angle, not so much where the Lakers are or if the Magic got such a raw deal, but apparently I've been told there is a tax hit for the Lakers. I'm curious about that. Did they go over the luxury tax by getting Dwight Howard? Could you elaborate a little more for us about that?
Yeah, there is a luxury tax situation that they're getting hit with because they did have an issue with the cap, and so it's more of the money that they took on early, and with the Howard deal, and so they were not able to work under the cap to get the money just right. So they're gonna have to jettison a couple of contracts to make it right. But at the end of the day, with the Lakers brand and with the money that they are going to generate with Howard being on the team, I don't think that the situation with the league is going to be something that they're too terribly concerned about.
And sticking with going back to the endorsement issue, Tebow does an interesting post for GQ where he, I guess, kind of looks like Jesus, or so we're told with the headline. And we knew that when Tebow went to New York, he'd have more opportunities for endorsements. How much money do you expect Tim to make this year from commercials, ads, billboards, what have you?
Ooh, that's a tough thing. Again, Tim had a lot of endorsements that were already in place. I think locally, I don't know that he has a lot locally in the New York area at this point in time. I think that probably Tim will. It's going to take Tim a year to establish himself as to what he wants to do. I know he and his camp are very close about what companies they align themselves with and how they handle the media. It's a very very close, very well organized machine they have there on how they handle the Tebow brand. So I think they might just kind of look at this and say, all right, let's see how things are playing out before they go rushing off and taking local endorsement deals. But at this point in time, I think that Tim, if I'm not mistaken, Tim obviously is in the top 5 endorsers in the National Football League. So he should that's not going to, he's not going to fall out of the top 5 by going to New York.
Living in New York, when they signed Tim Tebow, within 2 days they sold out all the jerseys in all the sports stores. That's how popular he was. But judging by the last preseason game, the way Sanchez played and the way the Jets looked and the way Tim Tebow looked, they weren't exactly very, very exciting. I think they lost to Cincinnati. I know it's preseason. They lost 17-6. But if they have a disastrous season, his value might go down a bit.
Tebow's a national brand. What he does in New York is meaningless to him. Selling jerseys, he doesn't make money off the selling of the jerseys. The team does. So, look, had he his druthers, I think Tim would have loved to have been in Jacksonville. That's where he probably would have been able to play better and had an opportunity. But I see what Rex is talking about with this, with the Wildcat, package and the package that Tim and Mark Sanchez is going into. But I saw it. I don't know about you guys. I mean, it was dysfunctional from day one, and I just didn't see the fit. Just didn't seem to make a lot of sense to me. And I thought that it was more that John Elway basically couldn't get rid of Tim Tebow fast enough because when he got Peyton Manning in there, he couldn't have Peyton Manning and Tim Tebow in the same in the same camp, and so he did the deal to get him out there. I don't think it was a good trade for the Jets. I still think that was. I went on his own record at the time. I didn't think it was a good trade, and I still don't think it was a good trade.
No, I agree.
Also, I mean, it's going to be just a fascinating soap opera backdrop with what's going to happen with Sanchez or Tebow. But you're right, you have two big stars at one position. So we'll see what happens with the Jets. Staying with the NFL, New Orleans Saints owner Tom Benson met with Commissioner Roger Goodell. Of course, there's been a lot of lawsuits since this whole scandal came out with Bounty Gate. Can you tell us what that meeting was about? Were they trying to make maybe some type of truce to get some of these lawsuits to kind of dwindle away, such bad press for the league and for the team?
Well, basically what they're looking at is trying to minimize the damage from Greg Williams' situation with this quote-unquote Bounty Gate deal. And, there's Tom Benson, of course, with the Saints, has a number of players and former players and coaches and front office people who were involved in this situation, or at least involved in the situation according to what Commissioner Roger Goodell thinks. And, Benson met with Goodell in hopes of getting a resolution as to, can we put a cap on this? Can we figure out what is real and what isn't real so that we can wrap up all these sidebar, lawsuits? And, I think the commissioner wanted to get that done. I think that he and Benson, at the best situation is to try to put as much of this behind them so they can move forward. I mean, they've got a lot of work to get done to get past this, but as a franchise and as the league, because it doesn't do the league any good to have one of their premier franchises, constantly in court with them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this is one of those situations where no one really wins. I felt the Saints had to launch those lawsuits somewhat as a defensive move because they just took such a hard hit with their coach and with everything that happened and Jonathan Vilma and so on. They had to do some type of defensive strategy, but it's still not good for both sides. So hopefully both of them, they can make some type of compromise. Let's go to Major League Baseball. A big meeting with Boston Red Sox players and their ownership to diss Bobby Valentine, to try to say that he's caused a lot of problems. Of course, the Red Sox were one game away from the postseason last year, now in a disastrous situation in the AL East. Pedroia apparently has his back, says he wants him to come back. What was said in the meeting, basically, and is Bobby Valentine's days numbered in Boston?
That depends on what, I don't know that everybody's speculating what has been said in the meeting. Clearly, there are players who do not like Bobby Valentine's style of managing. There were people in New York who didn't like Bobby Valentine's style of managing when he managed the Mets. I personally thought that he was kind of an odd choice in Boston when they took him. I don't think that they'll ever win under Bobby Valentine. I just don't see it. I think that what they needed was someone who was more structured and more disciplined, and that's not Bobby's MO. And so it's just you've got a bunch of guys who are used to one style, which, Tito, Francona, when Francona was there, he had a whole different, kind of a laid-back style, and some people said that was, a problem because some of the players, kind of run roughshod over him after a while. And so, to me, when Theo Epstein and, the guys, in the front office moved out, Larry Lucchino had more of a hand on what was going on in Boston. They brought in Bobby Valentine. They were one clown short of a circus. And that's what they've got right now. They've got a circus there. And you got to blow it up. And in my mind, if it were me, and it's not, but if it were, I'd get rid of Bobby and I'd start unloading some of the players on this team, and I'd start rebuilding the franchise because right now they're not going anywhere, and they're not getting
younger.
They're not getting younger, and they're not getting they're now becoming a bit of a caricature and almost a cartoon. And
but they do have some good young players.
Exactly what you want with regard to your franchise.
But they do have a couple good young players. I think they have Middleton at third.
Yeah. No. They've got. That's what I'm saying. If you took a look at what they had at a core, and they've got some good kids in Pawtucket as well. It might be a good time to start unloading some of some of the older players on that team if they can do it.
Do you think it's time to unload David Ortiz? I mean, reports have it that he can't.
You're not going to. David Ortiz he might have 2 years left in the tank at most. He's not the future of the franchise.
Would you unload him at this point?
I'm sorry?
Would you unload him at this point?
Well, I mean,
if you get something good in return,
somebody that would take him. The Rays probably would take him if you pay his contract. But that wouldn't go over well in Boston because I don't think they want to put him on a team that could potentially come back and they're not the Red Sox are not going to the playoffs. So I don't know. Would I unload him? I'd unload contracts if I could, but there's no reason to unload those contracts until after the season.
All right, great topic, and we're going to see what happens. It's funny to think people ripped on Terry Francona for being too light with the chicken and beer thing, but people in Red Sox land would love to have that back, right, Radio Mike?
Oh, yeah. They had to bring back Johnny Damon and his...
and the hair, the beard. Yeah. There was something magical to quote the Idiots team. They were very relaxed and won a couple World Series titles.
Well, Kevin Millar, I talked to Kevin Millar about it, and Kevin was saying that what got the success ruined the team. That that when they kind of when there was the situation where they were constantly battling the Yankees and things weren't always going great, and all of a sudden it turned, the tide turned. The Red Sox were having success and things were going their way, and they were winning championships, and they were life was good, and that was something that to coin an old sports cliche, they got fat, dumb, and happy.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that the
after that, there really wasn't anywhere to go. I mean, whatever Francona had to say, they'd heard it so many times they didn't need to hear it anymore, and they weren't paying attention.
It's kind of interesting. One great Red Sox, Derek Lowe, has surfaced now with the Yankees, and he came in the other day, pitched the last 4 innings of a game, got a save, and the Yankees now beat Texas 2 games in a row, but he was instrumental in beating them on Monday night.
Well, Derek Lowe is exactly what any team who's playing in, for a possible playoff position needs. He's a innings eater. He's a sinker ball pitcher. He's not a power guy. He never was a power arm. And so as long as he can keep that sinker down, he's fine. I mean, the only problem with Derek Lowe is if that pitch doesn't sink, then those ground balls suddenly become home runs. So as long as Derek can keep the ball down low and is comfortable in throwing, he's going to be a good addition to the Yankees, or would have been a good addition to any of the teams that needed pitching.
All right, again, so many places to go to, big time in sports, but I want to go back to the Olympics and talk about the gold medal game, because I've been asked this question. I've asked it for a few times. I want to know why the game was so close, because you have a team with 12 NBA guys versus a Spanish team that only had a few. I know they probably played better together. I know it's more of a European type of game, but the game was only 7 points. And Kobe Bryant, his words, he must be eating crow about the concept of this team being better than the 92 Dream Team. But I want to get, from your perspective, why this game was so close on Sunday.
I think it was because Spain did have a good, solid game plan. They weren't afraid of Team USA. They played solid defense. I think that really was critical. I know with 107 to 100, that doesn't sound like anybody played defense, but they did slow down most everybody except for Durant. And I think that what they proved is that you can run with the U.S. team if you have a cohesive 7 or 8 player team. I mean, this team, the Spanish team ran out their almost 8 or 9 guys. I mean, they weren't just. I mean, part of the problem with the teams that were facing the U.S. was running 5 guys out there that could, compete reasonably. The Spanish team rolled out 8 or 9 guys. There was depth on that team that I didn't see on any other team in the tournament when they faced the USA. So I think that was part of it, was depth and the ability to run their system so well. And so, again, that does help when the USA team is only really together for a month and a half.
Yeah, and that must be part of it as well, just the camaraderie, chemistry. You see how important chemistry is in sports, because you have a team that's clearly a lot more talented, more skilled, just better, a lot better than 7 points, but yet the game was close. And Spain, I think had Spain had a couple more pieces, had they had Ricky Rubio, for example, they probably would have won. So I'm curious of the U.S.'s future. In 4 years from now, will the Spain team increase to the point that maybe the U.S. might lose in 4 years from now in the 016 games?
Yeah, it's certainly possible. I don't even know that there will be an NBA that the NBA will be involved in it. I mean, there's been a lot of talk from the commissioner of wanting to basically start what in essence would be a World Cup, if you will, of basketball, and that they would basically allow the 23-year-olds and 22, 23-year-old players from the NBA to participate with the college team and put together a USA basketball team that, in essence, has the young stars of the NBA, but the future of a quote-unquote World Cup of basketball, I think, is something that intrigues Commissioner Stern and FIBA, and so I think that they've already had talks about it. So, is it possible that they could get that done before Rio? I think that that's something that they're moving forward on, and I think that they feel that a standalone tournament of their own, where they're not sharing the Olympic not sharing the Olympic spotlight is something that I think is fascinating and intriguing to the NBA and to FIBA at this point in time. So it's quite possible that we might have seen the last, or at least one of the last situations where world basketball is played on a high level at the Olympics.
Yeah, and I don't know. I certainly have people that disagree with this. I kind of think it's run its course. I mean, we've seen it obviously enough times, and you see the dominance. The games aren't competitive except for this gold medal game, and it's only a story if the U.S. team loses. So, to me, I don't know if that's an exciting tournament. You want tournaments where you're not sure who is going to win, and anyone wins is not this the biggest story of the world if the other team loses. It was about the USA losing in this tournament, I thought, if that's the story. So I think it would be good if somehow they had a different format, something to make it a little more competitive. Want to go, speaking of staying
by the way, the ratings in the United States were non-existent.
Well, right, I'm sure, because they get to see these guys every week, so to see them play together against a lesser competition, I can definitely understand that. Which, again, is a shame because they are playing for a gold medal.
Well, one of the worst All-Star games you can ever have is the NBA All-Star game. I mean, you don't like Major League Baseball, that All-Star game, but I think the worst one is probably the NBA. And I think people.
Well, the NFL is the worst.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, well that's true. NFL, that's hockey's not that much better. But I think people, when they hear the NBA, they're going to be in the Olympics and stuff like that, they don't really get into it, because they think it's a joke team, and basically it is. You have all these great players there, but it's celebrity basketball. I mean, and it would be a joke if they lost to any team in the world.
Well, it certainly would be if they've sent teams that have lost and have not played well, but at the end of the day, these are guys who are multi-millionaires who are having the joy of winning an Olympic medal, and I wonder how many of those guys, if you turn to them and say, would you rather have a Larry O'Brien trophy or the
gold medal.
For the Olympic gold medal, I doubt any of them would say a gold medal.
I'm going to correct you real quick, Jim. All due respect, Kobe Bryant did say a gold medal. Now, I don't know if he really meant that, though. He said it because he says he's playing for your country, but I agree with you. I don't know.
How many? What's he got? 4 Larry O'Brien trophies? I guess it's easy to say that
right.
When you have 4.
Yeah, it could be. I agree with you 100% because when you're
championships.
When you're getting in,
I mean, I appreciate that Kobe says that, but I don't believe Kobe for a minute that
right
that
on.
he.
Yeah, you're right. Because
do I believe that? Look, I don't. I believe he's proud. That the team won and that they were able to win a medal, but I just don't see how it's meaningful for them to win a medal. As meaningful as, we were just talking about the gymnastics situation. How can you possibly equate the winning a gold medal for those kids in the gymnastics team versus, a pickup team of millionaires who, who get together for 2 months out of a year to play in the Olympics every 4 years?
And not just that. I mean, winning an NBA title, you are playing against the best competition, and it's proved through 2 months of grueling playoffs, 7-game series. The team, the best team won, but this is a 2-week tournament, and theoretically, a team that was not the best team could have won. So I don't know how anyone with a real straight face could say they would prefer a gold medal over an NBA title. But let's stay a little bit theme with this basketball team because Jim Boeheim, one of the assistant coaches of this team, and of course more known for his coaching work at Syracuse, where he won a title with Carmelo Anthony, came with an interesting statement saying he's not sure if Jordan is better than LeBron, and this argument's going to be going on for a long, long time, but he just kind of added fuel to the fire. Did he say that because he saw LeBron up close and personal? LeBron won him a gold. He's also friends with Jordan. Is he just doing this to kind of have fun? Because this argument's been out there for a long time anyway.
I don't know. I think that Boeheim might have some sour grapes because Jordan didn't play at Syracuse. Neither did LeBron, but at least he got to coach LeBron.
Right.
I don't know. I mean, they're different types of players. They played in different eras, it's tough to say which, who's better than the other. I mean, it's.
I'll take Bill.
Personally,
I'll take Bill
was
Russell.
able to watch Michael play both in college and covered him in the NBA, and I will tell you that Michael was capable of personally taking over and closing a game. I think that there was something about Michael's makeup mentally.
Yes.
That he had the killer instinct that LeBron doesn't have.
Exactly.
He could take a game over and close it out, and we've seen LeBron in games, turn to Dwayne Wade and say, basically cede the game to Dwayne. That would never, that's not the way. Michael wanted the ball. Michael wanted the opportunity to win the game, period. And there might not have been a more fierce competitor in basketball during his time in the NBA than Michael Jordan from a standpoint of wanting to beat you. And I don't see that kind of fierceness that, from a competitive standpoint, that Michael had during his playing time as opposed to LeBron.
Well, I think Michael Jordan was a really a great defensive player, and he didn't get much notice for that. I know he did win the awards for being the best defensive player and offensive, but he didn't get enough notice for that. And he did have Scottie Pippen. He made the players around him a lot better. When LeBron James has an off night, then he just dishes off to Dwayne. And I don't think he's ever going to get the acclaim maybe he deserves, and I don't think he's in the category of Michael Jordan. But my pick for the best player is really Bill Russell, winning all those championships with the Celtics.
Well, I mean, again, there's no question that Bill Russell not only won championships as a player, he won championships as a coach while being a player.
Right, player-coach.
Which is pretty amazing. So, I mean, there's no question that, you had Red Auerbach, who was a Jewish coach. You had Boston, which was a tremendously, I'm going to go out on a limb here and say something that may be controversial, but a pretty racist town for a northern city. And you had 6 black players on the team, 6 white players on the team, and a Jewish coach. And they were successful for a number of years with, as you say, with a guy who wasn't the biggest player on the court. I mean, Wilt Chamberlain was bigger than him. But at the end of the day, what Russell was able to do was use his intelligence, use his knowledge of the other players on the team to make the team better. And that's pretty amazing. Now, again, could Bill Russell accomplish what he accomplished in the era of Magic Johnson and that group, or in today? I don't know. I mean, Bill Russell was 6'7", and so I think he's the same height as LeBron James. He was very fast and extremely good on defense and offense, but he certainly in his era was the greatest basketball player of his time.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, 6'7", he played more like a forward or center in his time, but nowadays would be a guard or a small forward. He at the same height as Jordan. Pretty much, Jordan's about 6'6". So it would be curious with all the technology, all the advances, the weight training, how Bill would do. But again, going to your point, the mental makeup of Michael Jordan, where you have a confidence in him. Michael would have never scored only 8 points in a finals game the way LeBron did last season against the Dallas Mavericks. So I think that is a part of it. But let's switch gears, go back to the NFL, talk about the Chad Johnson story. Of course, he headbutts his wife. His wife is filing for divorce, and he is fired on television. He is cut. So we were speaking this over with Danny Bruslauer that it felt a little weird watching it. It felt like watching a train wreck. We were enjoying someone's misery, even if Chad maybe had deserved to be cut. I wanted to get your thoughts on the whole Hard Knocks special and Chad Johnson being cut on TV.
Well, I mean, that's what HBO signed up for, and that's you're not having a good year in Miami. They had the baseball version of Hard Knocks with the Miami Marlins, and now they have the real Hard Knocks with the Dolphins. I think that part and parcel of this whole situation is that Miami made the decision to do it, and they had the cameras were embedded there. There really wasn't much. If they had done it outside of the cameras, it would have been something that they would have been criticized for from a standpoint of not allowing this to play out the way that it is. I mean, and look, from Chad's standpoint, he understood. He lives his life. He's lived his life in reality television. So it is just another in a long chapter of sad situations here, and I wouldn't be surprised that Chad Johnson is hooked up with some other football team before the end of the preseason.
Okay, so interesting. So you think that his career isn't done, that he will have no chance? Okay.
No. I mean, he's on the field. He still plays football, and he's still, talented in that regard. And if we've learned nothing, from guys who get caught with guns and craziness that goes about, if you have one iota of talent, you're still going to be given a chance. Somebody's going to give you a second chance, and I do believe that it may, before the end of training camp or the first couple weeks of the season, when somebody needs a wide receiver, that Chad Johnson's phone will ring.
All right, and of course now we got to talk about the big story this week: Dwight Howard going to the Los Angeles Lakers. And partly, let's analyze this deal. I think the Magic did not get such a good deal. Their picks are lottery, not lottery protected, I believe. Of course, their hand was forced because Dwight kept saying, "Get me out of here, get me out of here." At the end, even though the Magic didn't have such a good deal, they had to trade Dwight Howard, correct?
Well, they didn't have to, but they knew that he wasn't going to be, he wasn't going to play well for them. So, they got out of it. I think that they got the best deal they could for him. You're not going to get equal talent for him. So you've got to get, getting draft choices didn't hurt them, and they got a ton of draft choices for him. So, at the end of the day, it was the best deal they could make under bad circumstances. I guess that's the best way I can put it. It's not going to make up for losing, the best center in the NBA.
All right, so you think he's the best center in the NBA? So do you think the Lakers are now the favorites out of the West?
Yeah, at the moment, I guess you'd have to put them as the favorites out of the West. I'm trying to think a second here. Yeah, OKC is still good, but you put Dwight Howard in that team with the Lakers, it just it seems to me like it'd be difficult to make a case that at the moment, and again on paper, we're talking on paper at this point, since they haven't played a game together, it's hard to believe that the Lakers shouldn't be the favorites to win the West.
I kind of like the Oklahoma City team. They're basically a young team. I think they're very, very, they had a good experience. I mean, they did lose in the finals to the Miami Heat, but I think they're going to be a hungry team, and I think they have a lot to prove to themselves. And they have Harden. They have a lot of good players out there, and I don't know. I think I would pick Oklahoma City still.
Look, OKC's a good team. There's no doubt about it. I just think that the reason that I said that I think the Lakers is that if you really look at what wins championships. It's the inside game and the outside game. There's no way that OKC can match up inside with Dwight Howard, and the outside game that Kobe and the guys that they already have does help them. But look, it's a coin flip. OKC's a good team, and the Lakers are a good team, and either one of them could be back there. And it's
the big question is
Go ahead.
can they beat the Miami Heat?
That's a good question. Right now, I would have to say no, but we'll have to see how that plays out.
And most of America doesn't like that answer.
I don't like saying it, but that's
yes.
I'm not a big fan of the Miami Heat, but we'll have to see. Well, a lot of it has to do with chemistry. We'll have to see how Dwight meshes with the Laker situation and how they can put that team together in such a way that they can play against the Miami Heat and see if they can beat them. But I don't know. I mean, at this point in time, they are the champions till somebody can prove otherwise. And at this point in time, we'll have to see how it plays out. But it'll be fun to see how it plays out.
Can you imagine the Lakers and the Heat in the NBA Finals and Shaq sitting front row? And he has a bunch of former teammates. LeBron was also his teammate for a year in Cleveland. And, of course, Kobe and Dwayne Wade, and kind of sitting there smiling that 3 of his guys are playing the NBA Finals and 2 of his former teams. But Shaq, of course, has been on several teams.
He also was with Orlando. So
right.
Look, this is Shaq's world, and we're just all, paying rent. So
NBA-wise, it's certainly been Shaq's world for about 17 years. So just funny to think about the 2 of his former teams in the NBA Finals. What about the Spurs? I mean, the Spurs have not been talked about as far as between the Thunder and the Lakers. I feel like the Lakers are a better team than the Spurs. The Spurs have 1 or 2 more years left in the tank for them?
I love Popovich. He just rolls players out there and they play for him. It's hard to, they're a perennial playoff team. You can't ever count them out, but they just don't seem to have enough, enough up front to me to make, to make it from past OKC or Los Angeles now. I mean, now, they're going to get killed on the boards by both of those teams, and it'll be tough. But look, are they going to be in the playoffs? That might be the easiest bet in Vegas that San Antonio will be in the playoffs. Whether they will, win the Western Division title, I doubt that'll happen. But Popovich always seems to find a way to get them into the playoffs.
What do you think of Dallas?
I don't know. I mean, that's a funky team. I mean, they've got tremendous talent, but they also have some odd matchup situations, and it's Dirk is a phenomenal player, but again, they don't really have a traditional center, and that's now that we're seeing Dwight Howard move over to the Western Conference, having a center is going to be very important.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, last question before we let you go. Rafael Nadal is pulling out of the U.S. Open. He has a knee injury. And, of course, Nadal's been so dominant in the tennis world. It opens up a lot of different possibilities of who could take it, who could win. And I want to get if you have a favorite or a pick to win the U.S. Open now that Rafael is not in there.
I would say it's hard to pick against Djokovic. I think he played, he's played the U.S. Open well. He's played Flushing Meadows well. They love him there. Then you got Federer, who's just off of the win in Wimbledon, And then you've got Andy Murray, who just came off the win of a gold medal. So you've got three guys there who all three come to Flushing Meadows with some momentum. And I don't know, if I had to pick someone right this very moment, I'd have to pick Djokovic. But it should be a fun tournament because there are three or four guys there who certainly have the talent to win at Flushing Meadows. And Flushing Meadows is of all the tournaments they play, that's the one that's from a crowd standpoint and from an atmosphere standpoint is probably the most fun from a player standpoint to play, because you do get the crowd behind you, and there is more of a raucous attitude toward cheering and getting into the game than you would see at the French or Wimbledon. Although down in Australia they get pretty rowdy as well.
Absolutely. All right, Jim, we have to run. We have to let you go. We certainly appreciate your time here on Louis Live on Israel.
Always a pleasure, guys.
And we'll look forward to doing it next week.
Nice talking to you.
Right. Nice chatting with you guys. Take care.
All right. That was Jim Williams from the Washington Examiner, 7-time Emmy Award winner. We're going to take a break, and on the other side, we're going to wrap things up and tell you about tomorrow's show. It is a dandy. We have some great guests for tomorrow. This is Louis Live in Israel, sportsradio.com.
You're tuned in to the only all-sports talk network in the Middle East, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
This is Tamar Cass, and you're listening to Israel Sports Radio.
Shalom from the United States. I'm Gina Pitts.
Parrish Graham.
Mike Pitts.
Roosevelt Hall.
Mike Roy.
We're your friends from the Pro Sports Lives radio show on WAFS Biz 1190 AM. You're listening to Louis Live.
Broadcasting live from Israel.
IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Sports Strain CC, compression fit, UV protection, moisture wicking, anti-odor, and physique enhancing. Certified by the Circle K. Sports Strain is a revolutionary CC garment that features high performance properties and a compression fit, offering the wearer ultimate comfort and style for sports and everyday wear. Custom logos and team jerseys are available. For orders, please visit TamirGoodman.com. That's TamirGoodman.com.
Broadcasting live from Jerusalem, IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Support Barak Netanya, Israeli professional basketball team, as they give back to the children of Netanya through Netanya Hoops for Kids. Netanya Hoops for Kids serves all of the children of Netanya, especially the ones that need us most. Through basketball clinics held by professional players, at-risk children learn life skills like teamwork, communication, discipline, and community responsibility from real-life heroes. Netanya Hoops for Kids partners with the municipality, schools, and local nonprofits to bring thousands of children to basketball games each season. Join us as a donor, partner, or fan. One city, one team, one family. www.netanyahoopsforkids.org.
The biggest names in sports are all on IsraelSportsRadio.com.
DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJ Venom. DJing parties throughout Israel, birthday parties, weddings, club events, bar mitzvahs, bat mitzvahs, and much more. You pick the type of music, and DJ Venom will turn your event into the party of the year. Available Sunday through Thursday. Call 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. That's 052-952-6506 or email djvenom1984@yahoo.com. Book your party today. That's DJ Venom.
This is Dimitri Salita, and you're listening to IsraelSportsRadio.com.
Building love of Israel, one sports fan at a time. IsraelSportsRadio.com.
All right, back a couple of minutes here with Radio Mike on Louis Live and Israel Sports Radio. Radio Mike, before we get into your predictions of the Yankees, Dimitri Salita, who you just heard on that commercial, will be fighting soon. Do you have any inside information on Dimitri? We're going to get him on the program before his fight, but
yes, I know he's fighting in one of the first events that's going to be in the Brooklyn Nets stadium.
Oh wow, okay.
And it's going to be a really good fight. I mean, a lot of the fights that he's had in recent years, ever since he got knocked around, and I think he got knocked down in the second round by Amir Khan. Really,
the first round, 72 seconds.
Oh, that was the first round, not even the second. Anyway, so he really hasn't really fought top-notch fighters. And this one, I forget the guy's name who he's going to be fighting. It's also a fellow from Brooklyn. So you're going to have the Italian crowd fighting, rooting for one fighter, and then you're going to have the Lubavitch community, the Jewish and Russian community rooting for Dimitri Salita. It should be really a good fight because they're both really good fighters. The guy's name escapes me, but it should be a good fight.
Yeah, that's really interesting. Thank you for that inside information. I did not know that it's going to be in Brooklyn and that the other fighters from Brooklyn as well. So that will be entertaining. The fight. Do you know when the fight is? It's at least a couple of weeks, right?
Yeah, it's at least a couple of weeks away. I think it's, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's the end of October in the Barclays Center, and I hope to be there. It should be an exciting fight.
Yeah, and let's see here. Go to his website. His opponent is not here. So, the main thing is we want to get him on. Great picture of him and the president, by the way, if you go to Dimitri Salita's website. But we definitely will get him on before his fight. He's a big friend of the show, a big fan of the show. So we're still going to get him on to talk about it. And he's still working his way back to a title shot. And I like the way he's doing it because he's fighting a lot of fights. A lot of these guys, they have an unfair advantage where they get knocked out, and then the next fight, they get to fight for a title, like Oscar De La Hoya. That's not fair. Salita's doing it the right way. He's fighting a lot of comeback fights, tune-up fights, and we'll have him on the program to talk about his next fight in the Barclays Center, which Radio Mike, just like you could, if you wouldn't mind doing for us, one of his fights, you were there.
I've been to about 5-6 of his fights, and it's always an electric crowd, and most of the time the crowd is really behind him. It's always been a lot of fun watching his fights.
Yeah, so that'll be very entertaining. Last couple minutes here. Okay, we're going to give you some Yankee time. Where are the Yankees? Added Ichiro Suzuki. I don't know how much he's really going to add to the ball club, but the pitching has been lights out, even with their injuries. Anything less than the World Series title is not going to be good enough, correct?
That's correct. It's the Yankees. It's either we win it all or we don't. I mean, if you get knocked down the first round, that's awful. If you get knocked out in the championship series, we missed it in the World Series. But even if we lose in the World Series, that's not really good enough. I mean, you do have to, it's with the Yankees. You do have to win the World Series to be a successful season. Anything less than that is not enough.
This is probably. They have to be the team to beat, and one of the reasons why I always talk about this, the run differential, they are at 106 plus, which ironically is not the best. The Cardinals, my Cardinals, 107, but they're in third place in the Central. But the Yankees have 106 plus run differential. It reminds me somewhat of the 98 Yankees team, where they would, even though they didn't have, this team has a lot of stars. The 98 team did not have a lot of stars, but always put up good numbers and would win by pretty good margins overall when you added everything up. And they had 50 comeback games where they won in 98. This has a 98 type of field team. Now, I just want to go through their stats. Anyone on the Yankees have a chance for MVP, in your opinion?
Not at this point. At one point, I thought Robinson Cano had a chance, but his RBIs aren't mounting. I think he's at 66 at this point. He's had a good season, maybe not as good as other seasons he's had. Yeah, I know your favorite is Cabrera, but or it could actually be
could be Mike Trout.
Yeah, it could be Mike Trout with California there. I mean, he's just had a great season. He's a center fielder. He's a 5-tool player, and not only that, he steals bases. I mean, he's been invaluable for them. He could win the MVP.
Now, to go through the Yankees' leadership stats, the leaderboard. Of course, no Rivera this season. Rafael Soriano has 28 saves. So he leads the team. CeCe with 12 wins. Derek Jeter 320. Curtis Granderson leads with 30 home runs and 79 RBI and to share, 79 runs to share 77 RBI. A-Rod leads the team with 11 stolen bases. It kind of jumps out as a little weird with all his other stats declining.
Yeah, and he, if you watch him play day to day, and right now, of course, he's injured, he has really become a slow runner. And I think what happened was a lot of pitchers weren't keeping him on base and watching him enough, and he surprised a couple guys, and every once in a while would turn it up and steal a base. But they're not really a running team, and I think that could be a problem. They lost Gardner for just about the whole season, and he's a real speedster, and the fact that they lost him for the whole season, there goes 45 stolen bases.
Yeah, so that was certainly a big loss. Now, real quick before we wrap up the show, Soriano, looking at his stats here, 1.75 ERA, 47 strikeouts, 2-1 record, 28 saves, as I mentioned, only 2 blown saves. So not Mariano Rivera, because Mariano proved himself in the postseason, earned his pinstripes there, but Rafael's come in and done a nice job with a disastrous situation when Mariano got hurt in the beginning of the season. Well, really before the season started in spring trading.
Well, I would say Soriano's definitely the MVP of the team. Without him, and the bullpen's really been a solid part of the Yankees. Boone Logan, of course, Robertson's been great, and Epley, and they have just a very good staff. But without that closer. They wanted Robertson to be the closer, but then he came up with an injury, and Soriano took over. And with that really made all the difference in the world. Without Soriano filling Mariano's shoes, it could have been a whole nother picture.
Yeah, the Yankees might not have the commanding lead in the East. Very well could be fighting for a playoff spot if Soriano did not get them 28 saves. So truly a tremendous job that Rafael has done. That's going to conclude our show. First, I want to give some announcements of some gentlemen that are coming on tomorrow. It's going to be a great jam-packed show, a lot of big names. We're going to have L.A. Dodger former general manager Fred Clare. So he'll be on tomorrow, former GM of the L.A. Dodgers. Tommy Smith from ESPN, who likes to refer to the Irish as the 13th tribe. And from CBS Sports, Danny Knobler. So that's a huge show tomorrow. That, of course, will be 6 p.m. local time here in Israel, 11 a.m. out on the East Coast. You can listen to us on TuneIn, and of course our beautiful website, which has been created by Moshe Kwiat, has a lot of great stuff and very accessible. Our chat line facility is up, so you can chat to us during the show, very live and interactive. I want to thank everyone who came on today's show. It was a lot of fun. 3 guests on today's program. And first, we kicked it off with Danny Breslauer, the voice of Rutgers University. But we discussed more than just Rutgers sports, talked about the Dwight Howard trade and the Chad Johnson situation. Very kind of sad that we got entertainment that was classified entertainment from Chad Johnson being embarrassed about being cut. ESPN's Mike Tuck down in Orlando was able to give us on-the-ground information about Dwight Howard and the Orlando's faithful, their fan base, their feelings about losing another big star to Los Angeles and losing another big star in general. And, of course, we wrap things up with Jim Williams, 7-time Emmy Award winner from the Washington Examiner, who talked about Usain Bolt's money-making opportunities, expects about $50 million to be made from endorsements, a very likable athlete and has a wonderful personality as far as sensational. You might not like the guy, but he grabs your attention and won 3 gold medals in the 2012 Olympic Games. And, of course, I want to thank our in-studio guest host, Radio Mike.
A thrill to be here.
I'm glad you had a good time. It's always great to have you in studio. We hope you move here soon and can come here more often. So we'll work on that.
As soon as my wife tells me.
Absolutely. Stay tuned tomorrow. As I mentioned, we have a great show at 6 p.m. local time. But that's it for tonight. God bless and good night.